The fact that experiences leave a trace in our brain and mind is a central aspect of our mental life. What makes this possible is a complex neural machinery, which involves a core structure called the hippocampus because of its shape, and an extensive network of connection of this hub of the system with multiple cortical regions, which are responsible for the input and output of the information. This dynamic system is not a store of images, but actually a device which allows us to navigate in our world of experiences, both in space and time. Memory has been always very much prized by humans. They've been trying to improve memory abilities by techniques. They often involve the location of items in a complex spatial array, such as in the memory theaters. These are examples by Julius Camillus. What is really interesting is that only a few people are able to use these techniques to really improve their memory performance. Some of these people become professional mnemonists. A very famous case is Solomon SHERESCHEVSKY, a professional mnemonist, which was described by Alexander Luria in a wonderful little book called The Mind of the Mnemonist. Now we can do better than Luria and also look into the brain of mnemonist. And what we can see is that the core structure remains the same, but what is changing when the mnemonists are performing their tasks is the intensity of the connections between the hippocampus and many cortical areas, in particular the areas which are involved in spatial cognition. There is, of course, also the other side of the coin, that is memory getting worse. This is something which happens physiologically in aging and is associated with changes taking place at the level of the hippocampal structure. Extreme disorders of memory, called amnesias, are associated with severe impairment of this structure, such as in the case of patient HM, Harry MOLAISON, a patient who became amnesic after an unfortunate surgical procedure of ablation of both hippocampi to treat his epilepsy. Harry MOLAISON gave us a lot of information about human memory, and in particular about those aspects of memory which do not require the hippocampus functioning. For example, implicit memory. The phenomenon of memory which is not conscious was observed clinically by several clinicians, such as, for example, EDOUARD CLAPAREDE, who made this strange experiment. He put a pin in his hand and then shook hand with this patient with severe amnesia. The patient, of course, forgot almost immediately the experience, but in the following days, when she met Professor CLAPAREDE, she was not so willing to shake his hands, while she was completely unable to explain why. You can show this phenomenon in a more gentle way, for example, with this test, the calling pictures. If I show you the first set of pictures, you are probably not going to be able to recognize them as an elephant and as an umbrella. You are going to be able to do that when I decrease the level of fragmentation of the picture, probably in set 3 or set 4. However, if I give you the same test after a long period of time in which you have completely forgotten the experience of the test, you will still be able to recognize the elephant and the umbrella, probably at the level of set 1 or set 2. That is, some trace has been fixed in your nervous system. In this case, you don't really need the hippocampus, but the change in the pattern of the activity in the cortical areas, which requires for perceptual recognition, is enough to support this form of memory. I would like to finish with mentioning another interesting phenomenon, which is false memories. We all have false memories because memory, as I said, is not a photograph of past events, but a reconstruction. A reconstruction can go astray for a number of reasons. Attention, interference, strong bias in predicting what was happening in some point in time. A famous example is the Bologna Central Station clock. When the bombs exploded in Bologna Station, the big clock on the wall of the building stopped at 25 minutes past 10, but it was soon repaired and the clock continued to work normally for 16 years until it was again stopped as a memory of the tragedy. However, what is interesting is that most of the people from Bologna, including people working there for 16 years, that is passing in front of the clock many times, would say that the clock was frozen at 25 minutes past 10 for the whole 16-year period, even if this was not true, of course. So these are just a few examples of the many facets of memory function, dysfunction, hyperfunction. I would like to finish with these two verses from a poem by Borges, who was himself very interested in memory. He wrote a book about the mnemonist, which underlines the importance of memory. We are our memory, its role in our identity, and also its imperfect, fragmented status, chimerical museum of shifting state, pile of broken mirrors. Thank you very much.